Hey, welcome everybody. I'm here with Olivier Melnick. Olivier is in Seattle and I'm in Southern California. And this is our monthly opportunity to get together. And we're talking about all things Jewish. So Olivier, are you ready?
I'm always ready when you call.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw this out to you. All right? Ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Democrat Rashida Tlaib promotes slogan associated with calling for the elimination of Israel. I know that's not a surprise to you, but we are looking at the Biden administration. We still don't know what's going to happen with the election. It seems to be a roller coaster that we're on, which the rest of the world is also on. There's a lot of concerns over in Israel about a Biden administration. But this is what we've known about for a long time. You have these congresswomen who are really anti-Semitic, and she is promoted on a tweet on her Twitter account just the other day on Sunday that contained the phrase, you know the phrase well, with the elimination of Israel. StopAntisemitism.org highlighted the tweet that Tlaib retweeted, which stated, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." You and I both know what that means.
Yes, it's basically a call to eliminate Israel and to replace Israel with Palestine. It's a call that is originated, from the Palestinian Authority. And it's been picked up by people like Rashida Tlaib or even others from the squad. Ocasio-Cortez or party, the Socialist Party of America, they had a convention. I want to say it's either a year or 2 years ago. And at the end of the convention, and they were like voting, meeting, and doing the things that they do in conventions. They all in together saying that refrain, from.
River to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Palestine shall be free. I mean, this is the Socialist Party of America. You're going like, what's the connection there? Why do they even care about that in a Socialist Party convention? But that's what they decided. They were speaking about the Middle East, and that was their concluding statement. So it's very scary. And something you might not know, Tom, is that there is I'm looking at the invitation right now on my screen. There is a conference that's going to take place next week or a couple of weeks called Dismantling Anti-Semitism, Winning Justice. And it's a conference against anti-Semitism, to fight anti-Semitism, okay? So you have to get the best speakers supporting Israel, understanding the history of Israel, and understanding the false narrative of the Palestinian Authority. So the speakers are Rashida Tlaib and Mark Lamont Hill.
Yeah, so two of the most
and a few others.
Yeah, Mark Lamont Hill was formerly with CNN, I believe, and he had that same phrase. So these are two of the most anti-Semitic people. Listen, these are the typical. This is the way that the left works, and it's claiming to live under this righteous banner, but bringing their wickedness. Look, when you look at the false prophet, Revelation chapter 13, the Bible says the false prophet is going to have two horns like a lamb, but he's going to speak like the dragon. He's going to have this external appearance of just coming from a Christian background and understanding, but what he actually is about is the devil himself. And that's what this conference is. Well, this is against anti-Semitism. However, you bring in the most anti-Semitic people that are in the forefront of anti-Semitism today to get rid of all the Jews. So you look at the lies, and that is the way that the propaganda goes, the narrative goes, this whole thing coming from the left. And there's actually people out there, Olivier, that are dumb enough to believe that this is going to be about getting rid of anti-Semitism. No, it is not. It's going to be, it's under that, they're going to fly that banner, but in reality, the whole justice cause, this is not justice. It's not about the Jewish people, except eliminating the Jewish people. It is appalling, because I know exactly the direction that's going to go.
Absolutely. Now, you ready for this? I'm going to throw you for a loop. You ready for this? You know who's organizing the conference?
No.
Two organizations known as Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now. They're two Jewish organizations. So it's just mind-boggling.
This is just insane.
Leftist Jewish organization are organizing this conference against anti-Semitism, inviting Rashida Tlaib, Mark Lamont Hill, and other speakers that are less known to our audience.
That's bringing the wolf into the hen house. That's what they're doing. Not even guarding; it's just bringing them right inside.
But see, these Jewish organizations are very liberal Jewish organizations, and we know to many people it's still a mystery, but we know the numbers are in that for the last several decades, Jewish people in America, at least, for the vast majority of Jewish people have voted Democrat. They voted left.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the Democratic Party has also moved to the left in the last maybe 10 years, which we should say, quite a bit. It's not the Democratic Party that it was 50 years ago, but most Jewish people vote Democrat, and it's the connection that Jewish people today have with Israel and a Jewish cause and a Jewish heritage is not the same connection that they had 50 years ago. There's a chasm. There's not a chasm, a disconnect, I should say. Disconnect with Jewish things.
Well, let me get to this, because here the slogan is, from the river to the sea, it'd be the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine will be free, meaning free of all the Jews. The Palestinian people, it puzzles me when I look at Palestine and I look at the land area itself. God had a covenant. He made a covenant with Abraham, and to Isaac, and to Jacob. It is a forever covenant, the Bible tells us, and it is for the land. It's a covenant that God gave to the people of Israel, the Jewish people. They have the land. But then we have this term Palestine. Where does this term Palestine come from?
Well, first of all, for our audience, the covenant that God gave Abraham and his descendants, the land boundaries are found in Genesis 15, 18 through 21. And what's interesting is that the little sliver of land that we have in the Middle East right now called Israel, the modern state of Israel, even if you add, if you put Gaza back into Israel and the West Bank and everything, and you have this full map that most people don't even draw anymore, except if they draw Palestine and they draw the full map. But when you put the whole thing together, it's about the size of New Jersey. There is a boundary given by God in Genesis 15. When you put that together, just to give our audience a comparison, it's twice the size of Texas. So you put two Texas together, that's Israel given by God to the Jewish people all the way back to Abraham. And when is that going to be fulfilled, Tom? You and I know it. In the millennial kingdom. Mm-hmm. That will be fulfilled in the millennial. Until then, whatever land we have in the Middle East right now is a small portion of what God promised to the Jewish people, which has never been fulfilled. Now, the name Palestine, this is fascinating, because what's at the end of your Bible? You look at the end in the map section.
Yeah. Well,
look at the map section and tell me what you read.
So here we are. Let me show everybody this. If you can see this on camera, which camera is it on?
Yeah, there you go. I can see
middle one?
It.
Okay, right here. It says Palestine. Can you read that? Palestine in Christ's time. It's right there, isn't it? And there was no such name as Palestine in the time of Christ. So this Bible, listen, the word of God in here, the 66 books of the Bible, they're 100% accurate and true. However, you get to the man-made maps at the back of the Bible, that's a lie. There was no such thing as Palestine in the time of Christ.
Wait, you mean the maps are not inspired?
The maps are not inspired. So when somebody says, my Bible is absolutely true, I'm talking about from Genesis chapter 1 to the end of the book of Revelation. These maps are not inspired. But so with the Palestine, where did Palestine come from? Because in the time of Jesus, you had Judah, you had Samaria, you had Israel, the whole name.
Right. Well, what happened is that in AD 132, there was a revolt, the last big Jewish revolt, and it was known as the Bar Kokhba revolt. Bar Kokhba was actually declared by a very famous rabbi, Rabbi Akiva. He was declared Messiah, and of course, turned out that he was not the Messiah. He was one of the many false messiahs that Israel saw in her history. At that time, the Romans decided that not only that there was a big bloodbath and a lot of violence and killing and destruction and death, but the Romans wanted to go one step further. They wanted to change the name of Israel and the name of Jerusalem. So Israel became Palestina, and Jerusalem became Aila Capitolina. And those names were, it was a name to take the Jewishness out of the name and to further humiliate the Jewish people, which is something that has been done in many ways throughout history up to today. It continues to be done, taking the Jewishness out of Israel and out of everything Jewish, which is, we know this as Christian Palestinianism, but that may be a topic for another time. But so the word Palestine became the name of Israel in AD 132, which was way after the time of Jesus. So it's inaccurate to call Palestine in the time of Christ. There's an anachronism here. It doesn't connect.
No. You know what else is interesting in a sad way is the UN will go along with this whole the whole concept of Palestine and the Palestinian people to the point where you hear it promoted that Jesus was a Palestinian. You know, you go, wait a minute, why do they say that? Well, he was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is part of the West Bank. Therefore, Jesus was a Palestinian. And again, the name Palestine didn't even exist back at the time of Christ.
Yeah, they do a reverse history. So because we call it Palestine today, Jesus must have been a Palestinian, which is the reverse of what it should be. But you know, when I look at the word Palestine, I thought, well, maybe Palestine, maybe Israel was known as Palestine before it became a modern state. And maybe we're in the wrong. So I did a little research. I want to show you what I found. I have a dictionary here. It's a French dictionary, by the way, that started being published, like I wrote it down, 1649. So it's every year this Larousse dictionary gets published in France, okay, to this day. This is the 1939 edition. So 1939 is during the war, the Second World War, and it's also 9 years prior to the modern state of Israel. Okay, so here is. I'm going to show you a bigger section here. This is the dictionary. There's one flag right here and one flag right there. So I'm going to show you a bigger section that I printed so you can see it better. 1939 is the proof right here is that the German flag has got the swastika on it. So this is not the German flag that was prior to that, which had a black eagle in the middle. So this is Germany 1939. Look at Palestine 1939. Blue and white with a yellow star of David.
There you go.
The flag of Palestine today looks very, very close to the flag of Jordan. Okay, so that's that. But do you want to see something even more interesting? I want to show you this coin, because here's a coin I have. I think you have one too. I
do. Thank you very much. Because of you, I have one of those.
This little coin from Palestine. So I blew it up. This is fascinating. Here's a coin, okay? And on this coin, you've got Palestina in Arabic, Palestine in English, and Palestina in Hebrew. At the end of the word Palestina in Hebrew, there is a parenthesis here with two letters in Hebrew, the Aleph and the Yod. The Aleph and the Yod stand for, I circle them right here, for Aleph for Eretz, and the Yod for Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel. So in 1933, 15 years prior to the modern state of Israel, Palestine was Eretz Yisrael. So the word Palestine, I personally don't have a problem. I remember the conversation we had at your church a couple of years ago when we saw the poster, visit Palestine. Palestine, as it describes a landmass prior to 1948, I don't like the name because of the origin of the Bar Kokhba revolt and the humiliation of the Jews, but I can live with it because it's describing a geographical area. When I have a problem is when it becomes a politically charged word and it becomes the land of the oppressed Palestinians and the displaced Palestinians and occupied territories. This is all false narrative. And the proof is in the pudding. We have coins, we have stamps, we have dictionaries, flags, everything that refers to Palestine prior to 1948 is Eretz Israel. It's Israel. So it's just a word to describe a piece of land. They've grabbed that word and made it into a people group that really doesn't exist. Now, we have Palestinians today. We can't ignore the existence of the Palestinian people, but they're called that because that people has been created out of nothing with only the agenda to push the Jews into the sea and take over the whole land of Israel and make it into Palestine.
It's a whole political agenda. I look at this, Olivier, and I think of all the different things that are being perpetrated on the world right now. And there are lies from every different direction that are coming at us. But this lie, the problem with this lie is that it is of biblical proportions, literally. So I know that Satan is the father of lies. He is a liar, the father of lies. I can see where this comes from. But when I look at it biblically, this is what the Bible tells us. Again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to his descendants forever. And then Yeshua says in Matthew chapter 23, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So he's coming back to the land of Israel. He's going to be worshiped as the Messiah by the Jews. That's going to happen there in Israel at the end of the tribulation period. So when I look at this and I look at what's the threat to get rid of the Jews, this is the way I see it. And Rashida Tlaib and what's happening in the Democrat Party is this whole thing is of the devil. Satan knows that if he can get rid of all the Jews and kick them out of the land of Israel, then the Messiah cannot return to be worshiped in Jerusalem. It can't happen. He can negate the promise of God and that prophecy of the Lord that he says he will fulfill. So I believe that is what is really happening here. This anti-Semitism is a very spiritually dark in origin. It's of the devil, and it's horrific, and that's what his goal is.
And absolutely, and the way that people are buying into it, I've shared that with you before, is that Satan has the ability to make the irrational look and sound rational, because what people are believing about the Jewish people today is completely irrational, But they believe it, and they accept the libels and the diatribes made against the Jews as truth without checking any facts. And it is a plan of the devil. And you're right. We know how the story ends. And actually, I just wrote an article recently on my blog at newantisemitism.com. The only prophecy you can take to the bank today is the one about the fact that the Jews are going back to the land today in unbelief. It's prophesied in the last few chapters of Ezekiel, and that the Jews would go back to the land. So to go back to the land, well, they have to have a land to go back to. Well, that's the big deal. The prerequisite was 1948 was fulfilled. Like, okay, the land is there. It was always there, but it became officially the modern state of Israel. And now they're going back to the land in unbelief in large numbers, and eventually, the Valley of Dry Bones, and then the spiritual revival of the Jews once they're in the land will take place, and the Jews will, like we just said, at the end of tribulation, call upon the one who they have pierced.
Yep. So I look at all of this, the fulfillment of Bible prophecy is coming. I also look at it this way, Olivier. The only thing that's in the way right now of the anti-Semitism really growing to a place that is extreme, which is horrific to think about. It is the evangelical Christian. I believe the evangelical Christian is the one that stands in the way of globalism and the New World Order, and it's also the one that stands in the way of the attacks against the Jews getting worse. But I'm also disturbed by what I see happening within the Christian world, because there are more and more people who would have called themselves evangelicals in the recent past that are no longer, they're not supporting Israel the way they used to. And it's disturbing to me. They also are starting to not believe in Bible prophecy anymore. That seems to be decreasing too. And both of these things go hand in hand. But there's a global system that's coming, and unfortunately, the persecution is going to increase against the Jewish people. But that doesn't mean we stand by and just say, whatever, or whatever case that people want to bring about and say.
No, we have to speak up. We have to say something, and we have to be ready to act to help the Jewish people. I said it many times, and it's worth repeating. A bystander, somebody who doesn't do anything because they think like they're just one person, or they don't want to get involved, or for whatever reason they want to stay on the sideline. A bystander only facilitates the work of a perpetrator. So if you're a bystander, you become an accomplice into whatever is being done against somebody.
Yeah, in fact, good.
We cannot afford to be bystanders. This is what happened during the Second World War. Mm-hmm. A lot of bystanders, people just looked the other way when, to a certain extent, even the American government looked the other way when Auschwitz could have been destroyed. They didn't make the right decisions right away. So there's a lot of mistakes made. We cannot afford to be bystanders, especially believers. Believers as believers, we have a mandate to reach out to the lost and to bless the Jewish people. Genesis 12:3. Christians are going to have a chance to make a difference with the Jews. I think in the near future, because of the rise of anti-Semitism and what's going on globally and in America. So. It's coming.
You have tools. We're out of time, but you have tools to help people who are watching this program right now. I want to encourage them to go to your website, but also you have some books out. What do you have?
This is probably the most extensive work I've done on anti-Semitism, end times anti-Semitism, the newest chapter in the Logos Hatred. It gives a history of anti-Semitism and what's happening today. And so this book is on my website at newantisemitism.com, also on Amazon, of course. And this is the most recent one. This is a little manual that explains to Christians what they can do to help Jewish people today, because there are things we can do to help Jewish people, but understanding that we do all this because of what Yeshua, Jesus, has done for us.
Amen.
This is as a result of being a believer in the body of Messiah. We have a mandate. So it's a little manual that is going to help people, help the Jews. And there's this DVD that, do you know this guy, Tom Hughes?
Yes, I've heard of him.
Yes, Tom Hughes and Olivier Melnick. We had fun doing this 2-hour DVD a little while ago about the history of anti-Semitism, and we cover a lot of topics on this DVD. So it's all on my website, as well as my weekly podcast and weekly articles and other videos of teaching, newantisemitism.com.
Yeah. So people ask me all the time, what should I do? What should I do? Well, here's something that you can do. So go to Olivier's website, newantisemitism.com. Those are excellent resources there. And the DVD that we did together, that was fantastic. I learned a lot just doing the documentary with you. But it's fantastic. And really, listen, folks, I want to encourage you. We're caught up in coronavirus madness. We're caught up in the election, Balagan, but don't let these things knock you off track, and stay focused. What do we know? We know we need to put Christ first. We know that we need to bless Israel, and we move forward. And I know you're like me. If you're watching this program, you're thinking, I want to be pleasing to God. And this much I do know. God has determined that the Jewish people were the people that he chose to give the land, and also through them the Messiah would come. Olivier, I had this conversation earlier today with a friend of mine about how many Christians don't even realize that Jesus was Jewish. That alone is just mind-boggling, but there's so many that don't. But with that, Olivier, we need to say shalom. Any final words for everybody that's watching?
Well, yeah, and I'll surprise you a little bit. My final word for anybody who's watching is that they should go to your church if they live in California, Southern California, because I have found very few churches as supportive of Israel and the Jewish people as your church. So where is your church?
It's in San Jacinto, California, Southern California, San Jacinto Valley, 412 Church. I never mentioned that. And we are open too, by the way. And
yeah, I mean, I've spoken there many times. You've had many, many guests, and I will be there again. I'm sure your church is a very, very special church. It has a unique place in my heart. And your love for my people and for Israel always blesses me. So thank you for your friendship and your leadership. And for doing this vlog, this week, this monthly video.
Bevekisha. Thank you very much. All right. Shalom, Olivier, and shalom to everybody watching. Again, I can't encourage you enough. Pick up those books. Go to antisemitism.com. It's free to visit there. It's also free to visit Hope for Our Times. There you go. Free to visit hopeforourtimes.com and get all the information that we have there for you. And listen, until next time, if we're not raptured, see you soon. And Olivier, you'll be back 1st of January, which will be exciting. Who knows? By then, we should have another, be further along in the whole election process.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. God bless. Thank you, Olivier.
God bless. Shalom.
Shalom.